Hi and welcome to Gemini season. It starts in 1 hour. So we are leaving Taurus and we're coming in to Gemini. What we would love everybody to do is to learn foundation astrology as a way to enrich the archetypes and the gates, because it's really helpful to know if a gate is in a feminine or masculine sign, if it's mutable or cardinal or fixed. Also super, super helpful to know the element from an astrological standpoint, which is going to be different from the elements of the I Ching for each gate. So this is something that we do in the setup, which is a bundle, or if you're in an inner circle. We could say that what we are doing is that we are teaching human design, but we are enriching the archetypes with the gene key language and the understanding of the frequency bands of the gate. We are also using Richard's understanding of the planets, and then we are using astrology to be more accurate, even more detailed about each and every gate. So there's not some kind of guessing going on, but we are always respecting the circuitry. We're respecting what center it's in. We're respecting the things that I just mentioned from astrology. So that's where it becomes even more solid and accurate when we understand the bigger map. Robert, who the founder of human design, he didn't know astrology before he got the voice. And then he started to put 1 + 1 together. And that's when he even started to speak about in the line companion about exaltation and the detriment of different lines with different planets. That's why instead of doing a big overview of the 20, I want us to feel into all of them. Then at the end of the presentation, we're going to zoom back into the 20, and that will be the main gate for today's conversation. But I want us to have that overview that is 100% relevant for the 20, but it's also relevant for all the other gates that are in this part of the wheel. Now in the free course, Walking the Wheel, we're 600 people. So 600 people are committing to walking the wheel with Unlock Your Design, weaving human design, astrology, and the gene keys, understanding the gates from these different systems. So welcome to Gemini season. This is the third sign in the astrological year. And what I just said before is that our method is to walk the wheel. So we are walking the wheel through the hexagrams of the I Ching, which is also the gene keys and the gates and the archetypes. And we're also looking at where are we in the astrological wheel. So whenever we are in a hexagram, it's also going to correspond to a zodiac sign. And we are now looking at, like I said, the third sign in the wheel, which also is going to correspond to the third house, and the ruler here is Mercury. This little piece of the cake is where we will be for the next month. So here you can see the different archetypes, and actually right now we are in 8.6, and that very last line is in Gemini. If we want to be really accurate, it should definitely be here too. So we have the tranquil, the enthusiast, the heroine, the goodwill, the prophet, and the wild woman, which is also on the cusp. So the wild woman, if we look at the wheel again, it's going to be right here. So we have the 8 right here, and it's just very, very last part. And then for the 15, it's more on both sides, the Gemini and the Cancer. So here we have the wheel. Some of you might be a little bit new to the astrology. The thing that I would like you to do is to have this bi-wheel. I love it. This is genetic matrix, and that you look what you have in Gemini. So if you have this HD natal astro chart from genetic matrix, you're going to be able to see in each and every sign what are the activations that you have. And you're going to see red for the prenatal or the design activations, and then it's black for the natal activations. And it's so helpful to see it this way, to have everything in the same chart. So in this case, there is only, I think this is my chart actually. So I only have Mercury in Gemini. That's why I like to be versatile and speak many languages. That's what I want you to see, what you have, because we're going to speak about those archetypes. So this is what I just spoke about. You can do the 12 setup series courses if you want to. It has everything that you need to know about each sign. But right now, let's just focus on what we are walking into in an hour during this call. So we are walking into Gemini. The polarity is masculine. The modality is mutable, changeable. The element is air. The ruler is Mercury. It's also corresponding to the third house, and the perspective here is personal. So in the beginning of the wheel, it's personal. It's like coming in, having a self, valuing the self, and learning to communicate. That's Aries, Taurus, and Gemini. So that's where we are in the wheel right now. This is the first air sign of the zodiac. It invites us to awaken the mind, engage in meaningful dialogue. So let's do that today. Explore the power of curiosity and communication. This is the season of movement, connection, and inspired expression. We can see that superpowers of people that have a lot of Gemini in their charts is that they are curious, expressive, witty, adaptable, intelligent, playful, versatile, quick thinking, articulate, and social. And the pitfalls can be scattered, overthinking, inconsistent, superficial, restless, gossipy, distracted, and neurotic. So even just looking at this, you can see those basic things. We said it was air. All this feels airy and up here, right? And also we said it was masculine, which is also that it's positive and outward going. And all these qualities, good or bad, they are going out into the world. And you also see that the modality is mutable, it's changeable, curious, witty, adaptable. So it's moving a lot. So even just looking at this, it's nothing that you necessarily need to remember by heart when it comes to astrology. A lot of people do that. They remember everything by heart, but not with astrology, not with human design. You don't need to remember anything by heart, because in human design, you look at the circuitry and you understand, oh, this is a gate that's individual. Okay, so it has a pulse, it has a knowing, it cares about empowerment, right? So we don't have to guess. We can understand the big things and then we can actually get the details from there. So that's the same thing here. Air, outward going or masculine, and mutable. And all these qualities here come naturally when we know that about a sign. Gemini season is a time to follow the spark of inspiration, explore new perspectives, and share our voices. It also invites us to embrace duality, dance with paradox, and stay open to discovery through connection. And this connection is with others, with life, and with the ever-evolving truth within us. Here we have those archetypes again. And let's just look at where they are. So here we have a throat center gate, and this is what you're going to see. Throat center is about manifestation and metamorphosis. And you're going to see how many, actually all except one, even the 8, it's also here in the throat center. So they are all about expression. And when Roy speaks about the throat center, he also speaks about having things come to the throat. And sometimes we say that even the difference between generators and manifesting generators, they have the same aura, but it's different when you have a motor that is coming directly to the throat, like the MGs have, and the generators don't have. So in order for things to manifest, to come into form, we see also we are in the part of the wheel that is the quarter of duality. Things manifest through form. The purpose is to manifest things in form, right? So people that have this as their sun gate, they are going to care about tangible things. And maybe that is a bit more clear when we speak about an earth sign that is fixed, like Taurus where we were. But even here, through that expression, so much is created because we connect, because we are in that creativity together. And Gemini has its genius in that connection. So the tranquil. You can see that it's part of the fork. The only place in the human design body graph where we have a fork, where there is more than 2 gates that create a channel, is here. So we have this 20, we have the 10, we have the 57 and the 34 that create this 4 formation. And it's all about the individual empowerment in the now. It's where we have evolved because we weren't really open to outside influence. We were very in tuned in the moment, in our intuition, in our power, in our awareness, in our behavior. So we could behave in a way so that whatever came, we were able to survive. So that's what led to evolution, and also the spine that was an animal and was horizontal, and then the vertical spine. So that's what the 20 is part of. And the tranquil is part of being able to have that awareness and observe. So this is not an awareness gate, but it has to do with awareness. So that's interesting. That's something Rara who is speaking about as well. In the 64 doors, we say that the internal motivator for the tranquil is to trust in the divine order. So whatever is happening, whatever is moving, there is that empowerment in being aware, observing what is, not necessarily having to react to anything, but to trust in the divine order. And I like to look at the little hexagram here, and it looks like the Arc de Triomphe. It's like I'm thinking about Paris and that thing just standing there at the end of the Champs-Élysées. It's just standing there, and you've seen like kings and everybody walk up and down the Champs-Élysées, and it has that kind of tranquil thing to it. And then we have the 16. So here we're also in the throat, but we are not in the empowerment of the individual here. Here we are in the collective circuitry that is recognizing patterns. So the 16 is connecting to the 48. This is about mastery. This is about being both wide and deep. Whenever we need to be versatile, we can be versatile. Whenever we need to be deep, we are deep. It's connecting to the 5818 that can discern if a pattern doesn't work. It's also connected to the 31-7 to be able to speak out a better pattern for the collective, for the future. So this is about sharing. This is about connecting to the future and patterns that can work better for humanity. And what we say in the 64 door is that here we have a passion for experimentation, because in order to arrive to mastery, we need to identify with something, and then we need to do it so many times. But in order to know what we are identifying with, we need to actually test it. So if you have the 16 and you're like not doing anything, then it's probably time to find that curiosity, that Gemini energy of, okay, what do I want to connect to? And then try it. And then if it feels right, if it feels like you can identify with it, then there is no limit for what's possible. Then we have 35, the heroine, here in the very heart of Gemini. And here we are on the other side of the throat center. So we are still in collective circuitry, but instead of being logical patterns like we had on the other side, here we're going to have abstract. So this is connected to the 36, the storm. This is the channel of transistoriness. And it's not until we look back that we can make some sense of it, usually. The 35 needs to be in the adventure. It needs to have those experiences that fills the heart, because otherwise it can feel hunger and frustration and just need to have some kind of experience. So it's important here, that connection to also a healthy brain chemistry with serotonin and tryptophan in food, so that you have a brain chemistry that can actually have you feel fulfilled, so that you're not always looking for something else, something more outside of you. So here we also have that experiences that is yearning for. But we can see that the experiences in the 16 is more because there is a pattern and there's a building up to mastery. And here in the 35, yes, it can be chaotic with a lot of different experiences. And like I said, the abstract circuitry is not until we look back that we can make sense of it. And this is all for the collective. So the sharing here, the knowing that the neighbor did this or that can actually help us to not do this or that, or to do this or that. So this is very much a sharing and an understanding in the collective of what works, what doesn't work. And it adds to that kind of akasha of the memories of everything that ever happened. And that is part of our evolution of consciousness. And then we have the 45, the goodwill. And here we are still in the throat gate, but now it's connecting in tribal circuitry to the 21. So we have the king or the queen here with the resources, and then we have the manager in the ego center, the 21. So that's the very organization and structure of the tribe. We need somebody who has the responsibility for the resources, and we need somebody who manages them. And then all the other gates in the tribal circuitry are of course also helping with the survival of the tribe, which is the thriving in the material plane, not only the surviving in the material plane. And the 45 is with the 21, this channel that is connecting for people that are ego manifestors. So ego manifestors, or they could be MGs as well and have this channel. We call it the money channel because it has all that power. And as we know from the gene keys, sometimes we can live it out in a low frequency, and then it's not necessarily that we will have a lot of money, but there is the capacity here to unlock that kind of genius. So for the 45, we have said that the motivator is the well-being of the community. So here, when it comes to the material plane, we can't survive in isolation. And when the tribe thrives, that's when everybody can thrive. So even the king needs to have that goodwill to care about the well-being of everybody in the tribe. Here we have the prophet. So we are still in the throat gate, and now we are in individual circuitry. So coming back from the 20, that was individual circuitry. We're on the other side. Here we don't have a fork. We have that simple connection to the 22. And this is the only way really that the individual can express their emotions. This is a social channel, and this is how those emotions can come up to the throat. So Here it has to do with being in the mood or not. So it's not always about sharing. That's why we call this in human design the gate of caution. So that's something also that Gemini can learn, because sometimes we can be a little bit tired with Gemini because it seems like it's just speaking for the sake of speaking. But how can we have a bit of caution and speak when we are actually cutting through with truth? So here it has to do with not being overcautious, but at the same time kind of choosing when and what we share, which is always a dilemma when it comes to the individual circuitry, because it has this timing aspect to it. When is the right time? When is that mutation going to be able to spark in others as well? And for the 12 motivator, truth is what matters. If it's just superficial stuff, it can be fun to connect, but it's not necessarily something that is going to create something long lasting. And now we are in the last one, which is on the cusp of Cancer. So here we actually now are leaving the throat center and the manifestation, the metamorphosis, the expression that lives in the throat. And we are coming into the G center, the center of self, the center of direction, the center of love. So knowing who you are, knowing where you're going, knowing what love is. And here we are back in the collective circuitry. So this is connecting to the 16 and the 48. So collective circuitry patterns. This is the aura. So people that have this gate, they are connected to the collective patterns. And because the wild woman or the wild man can be quite extreme, that's also where sometimes other people come into their cadency and they don't really realize until they are really in it. So this is a gate where it's important to be connected to nature, to cadence that is healthy, because otherwise it could go quite far. I was looking at this for myself. My progressed sun, the progressed sun is that from the year you're born, you move 1 degree every year your sun. So of course, if I was born in Taurus, 30 years later, I'm going to be somewhere in Gemini, and now it's some more years. So I'm going into Cancer in my progressed sun, which is going to be connected to my ascendant. That's also in Cancer. And I'm going to be in my Uranus opposition as well next year, which has the cross in gate 15 and the cross of the vessel of love. So it's going to be a lot of 15. So I don't know how wild I'm going to be, but I could be quite wild in a year. Here we actually say it is to care about the whole. So in human design, this is the love of humanity. But the only way, Rahu is very clear with that, the only way of loving humanity is to first love yourself. And that's where we're needing the 25, the innocence, the love of spirit. We need the love of the body, caring about the temple. We need the self-love and the behavior of the self in a way so that we feel like we are in our naturalness. And with all these 4 gates together, 25, 46, and the 10 and 15, that's when we also can feel the love of everything that's out there. And actually, when we're reading the line companion, Rahu doesn't say that extreme is necessarily extreme. He says that this is very much about uniqueness. So your uniqueness might look extreme to somebody else. It doesn't mean that it is extreme. Actually, the first line of the hexagram is called modesty. Because it's just you do your own thing and you don't really care about others. And I think that goes together so much with 2027 and what we're going into. It's about being ourselves, being unique, coming back to all these G center gates. The G center gates are the locks in the global cycles. And every time, every 400 years, when we're changing the cross, there are new keys that are unlocking those same G center gates. So different ways of unlocking the love of self, unlocking our temple. And I was looking at that the other day. We have done a masterclass on it before, but I just wanted to make it even more clear for people now that before, for example, for the temple, that I'm always speaking about embodiment, before to unlock the 46 in our lives in humanity, it was the 40. So if you had some resolve, yeah, you can probably survive and be quite healthy. However, now that we're going into the cross of the sleeping phoenix, the way that you unlock the 46 is going to be the 59. So we're going to need transparency. We're going to need true intimacy. Those are the 2 things. And we're going to destroy it for ourselves if we are resorting to dishonesty. And that's just so important. Our body is going to fall apart if we can't find this higher frequency of transparency, of intimacy, of connecting in a way that's healthy. So those are the gates that we are going to be in Gemini season. And here today we have looked at some of the keys to unlock Gemini. And I just want to read this short introduction to the 20 to bring us back to the 20. So the tranquil and the deconditioning journey of this archetype. The tranquil is the embodiment of presence made visible, the sacred still point in the center of the storm, rooted in immediacy, yet vast in depth. The tranquil speaks only when lives move through them, when presence becomes word and word becomes truth. They are not here to strategize or to posture, but to be, to witness, to speak from the now, and to reflect the perfection of the moment with utter calm. This is the one who listens to life before responding, whose self assurance is born of alignment rather than ego, and whose silence often says more than speech ever could. So that brings us back to the Tranquil, who is the main character of today's movie. So, who wants to start?
I'll start us out.
Yay!
Donnelly here. I have 35 as my personality Earth. And it's really the only thing in Gemini. But on behalf of saying that, I realize all of my programming partners are in there because I'm real heavy in Sagittarius. And while looking at my birth chart and things, it looks like an empty sort of position for me. It's by no means empty because all my programming partners, like I have a stellium of planets in Sagittarius, right? So that stellium is reflecting. Am I understanding this correctly? This is my new awareness as we went through the call today, as well as a greater understanding that's starting to land for me in and around the fact that just because I don't have planets there, I already have those gates anyway. But the fact that they're programming partners, two gates I have activated, makes them a little bit more, I don't know, valuable or important to me in that regard. And I just wanted to open that up and unpack that just a little bit more.
I love that reflection. And this is everywhere in the wheel. We are always here to integrate. Sometimes we speak about the nodes, and people are like, yeah, but North Node, I need to get to my North Node. Wherever we are in the wheel, there's always an integration of both. And like you say, it's mirroring because say, oh, you're so dominant in Sagittarius, so you don't even care about the trivial. I think you're a 4-6. Are you 4-6?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like you are only transpersonal. You don't care about the trivial. You're about the big truth and the big things. And anywhere we are, we always need to have that integration on the axis. And that is the programming partners. And we can look at one gate and one gate, and they are programming partners. But we also look at the axis with the whole entire sign. So when you have a stellium somewhere, it's so important that you look at the other side. I would say more than saying you have the programming partners, I would say they are your allies. Because if you're not marrying all that Sagittarius optimistic energy out there, then something is going to be unbalanced in your life. So it's so important that we look to the programming partner saying, thank you for balancing me. Because if I'm over focusing here, which is maybe more easy for you to do, but then the ship is not going to be stable.
That was so beautifully put and resonated so deep in my bones. Thank you, my allies.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really get to tune into them in a different way with that newfound awareness. These are my allies. I love it. Thank you, Bella.
Thank you. And that's for all of us. I am a Taurus sun, but I have a lot in Scorpio. So sometimes I feel like I'm Scorpio more than Taurus, but it's so important for me to come back to that sun and looking at the other gates. How can they help to stabilize sometimes that intensity, right? So it is so important for us to always look at the axis and integrate. It's not to say, oh, I don't want Scorpio, that's too dark, or I don't want Gemini, that is too superficial. Always have that balance because they are lovers, right? They are super partners, lovers, programming partners, opposites on the wheel, but polarity points in the sense that they are not opposites that can't be together. They are polarity points that create a unity.
Beautifully woven together. There was one more thing you said that sparked a aha in me, and that was as a 4-6, I'm turned off by small talk. Like it's really heavy energy for me to be around and in for long periods of time. And I really never related that to being a quality of 4/6 personality or profile. Interesting and a big aha, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mary, I saw that you were nodding, I think, on the 4-6 thing.
Oh, I really identify with the 4-6, and I don't have time for small talk. It's like if you can't have real talk with me, see ya, you know. And I don't find myself in situations very often where I have to do small talk. I would much rather talk about things that matter and create intimacy rather than just how's the weather, what's the latest, whatever. So I really identify with that.
Both of you are fire. If you have a stellium in Sagittarius, a lot of fire. If you're an Aries, Sun is a lot of fire. So you're kind of just burning off, right? The 4-6 is more the transpersonal. So it's always with the other, but the 6 line is always seeking meaning and higher purpose. And that is the soul. So if there is a 4-6 with the connection with their soul, that breakthrough we speak about in the gene keys, then yeah, the soul is going to ask us to not be with our body, with our being in places where there is no purpose and no bigger perspective. So that goes very much together with Sagittarius as well, in that sense of the bigger truth, the higher purpose.
Well, I think when you think about what gives you more energy as opposed to takes away energy, having a great conversation is way more interesting to me than not very sweet. So that's so yeah, again, I would much rather have, and maybe it's the 6 that wants that meaning and depth and like is already looking toward the future. I like what you were saying about all the things that are helping to create a world where if you're being dishonest, your body's going to show. Maybe that's why I've had 3 breaks in the last 4 years. So got some work to do.
Yeah, the body will always tell. And another word that can be connected to all of us, probably over 90% of us have some 6 lines in our charts. And cellular intuition, cellular wisdom, cellular truth, that is going to be the compass for 2027 and forward. So the 3 awareness centers, we have to detox a bit of the functioning still of the emotional center because it still tends to pull us a lot from our center, but that is becoming an awareness center. We have the splenic awareness, we have the logical awareness with ajna, those 3, and when they are working together, that's not enough. We need to turn off the cellular intuition every single cell, and that starts from the base of the spine, and that's been connected through the amino acids and the codons to exactly actually what vertebra is connected to what amino acid. So we could say that the codon rings or the star codons are connected to the spine in a certain order. Very much some of those splenic gates that are Scorpio, Sagittarius, that are on the bottom of the spine is about the cellular certainty, the cellular intuition and wisdom. So that's the base of how we're going to be able to actually even be in our spine in this world, because it's going to be so hard to know what's true and what's not true because the fake is going to look so real, right? Sometimes even realer than the truth. And that is things that we're navigating right now.
You say just resonates so deeply. Recently, I've been called to create posts and newsletters to talk about the value of embodied listening and that we're listening with the cells of our body. It's picking up meaning and messages in between words. And we're really learning telepathy and opening up for our clair skills by just practicing the embodied listening. We're doing the preparedness work to get ready for all that's coming in for us as our light codes keep getting enhanced, right? And it's so ironic that you said 2027, but I'm feeling that you're still holding on to that number because that's where Richard and a lot of human design had thought 2027 was like a turning point for us.
It's in the calculations that the voice came with for the global cycles. And that is when we go from a first line reality to 6 line reality. Because when we look at the global cycles, we are going the other direction. So instead of going line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 through the gates, it's going backwards. So from a first line reality to sixth line reality. A sixth line reality, as we know, it's not tangible. It's very subtle. It's even more subtle than the ether. So it's about intent. It's about connection to spirit. So everything that comes is to actually bridge spirit into matter. Like I always say, there's no spaceship that's coming and pick us up to 5D. It's about, exactly like you said, the embodied listening. That's what we are needing. And in some of the tantric work I've done, a super simple exercise is if you have a ring when people don't know each other in the beginning, and you do like 30 seconds of eye gazing, and you go round into rings and you stand with a person, and if there are no instructions and you just do that, it can be a very powerful experience because you see basically the soul of somebody else, even if it's just a little snippet of it. But it also can feel quite wobbly because you have seen so many souls in maybe 10 minutes. And then you say, okay, let's do this again. But first, let's make sure that you connect in yourself, that you connect, that you feel your whole middle pillar, and you come down into your heart, you come down into your belly, you come down all the way into your base. You feel the connection with Mother Earth, and you feel this groundedness, this tranquil, like completely the 20 that we're speaking about. You are in the awareness of your embodiment, of your empowerment, of you. And then from that neutral place, we're going to do the exercise again. The experience is completely different. And not only the experience, but the energy in the room is completely different. When you have like trees looking at trees, like it feels so different. Even how you can feel nervous with some people, and you can feel yourself flickering. When you are anchored in yourself, embodied listening, or embodied seeing, embodied observation, right? The world changes. And that is such, like, in 40 minutes, you can have like such a powerful experience of the truth. So in every moment, if we can connect back in first before we go out, and Gemini, again, before we speak, before we react, if we can connect back in, that is definitely the place to go first.
Such a beautiful topic today. Thank you.
Fernanda, now it's your turn.
Yeah, thank you, Bella, for sharing what you just shared about the eye gazing. It's one of my favorite experiences in my tantric training and years ago. It's so deep. But what I wanted to say is that I'm a 3/5, and I get super bored when it's trivial, no deep connections, no deep, even if I am not a 4/6. I just can't stand it when it's just superficial. I mean, I've always been like that, so I don't know.
It's also about an awareness level, and at a certain awareness level, then it's like a little boring. So that is part of the conversation as well. So
Thank you.
and going back to the question about 3D and 5D and them not being separate, they're right here, right now. So depending on that level of awareness, how deep we can connect with ourselves and each other, the energy that we are in could be 3D, could be 5D, but actually it's all here. I spoke about Tantra right now. Somebody wrote in the chat, Fernanda said she has training in that. And that is this meeting point where we're actually bring everything into the body. We're not trying to go out of the body. We're not saying the flesh is not good, but we are finding our embodiment. And actually, in that sense, we could say that even the sexual act is something so spiritual, because it's that point where the physical body, the human heart, and the creator spirit get to meet not only yourself, but with another person. And we are actually embodying 3D even deeper. So for me, what we are doing with 2027 is to come deeper into embodiment. And the way that you can see that with, again, remember, all the gates in the G center are the locks. And we're always global cycle after global cycle after global cycle. We are unlocking the G center gates. And there are two equinoxes. So now the main one is the cross of the vessel of love that we are unlocking, but we also have the Sphinx that's there. It's always two equinoxes. So there are 4 gates and 4 gates. And then all the other gates in the wheel are unlocking the G center, the true self, where we're going, what love is. So knowing that what's going to unlock the main cross is going to be the sleeping phoenix. It's the freedom and liberation in gate 55. It is the intimacy and the transparency, like we spoke about in the 59. Then we have today's gate, the 20. It's to be embodied in the now, seeing, listening, observing, being, right? That is the 20. And then we have the 34, which I call the Black Panther. So that is to be in our physical empowerment. Going back again to Sagittarius, this is to have that kind of higher truth energy, but in embodied form. in the 34. So those are the gates that are unlocking the next period of time that we all need to come into our own unique union with. So we're all going to have different flavors of embodying the new cross. But to me, at least, there's something really cool when I get a set of new keys. Yeah, the cross of planning. I've learned a lot about the 37 and the 40 and the 16 and the 9. Yes, what is the intention every moment? How can I use my versatility? How can I make sure that I have a community that's supporting me? I went to court by myself a week ago. I went in an Uber and I had to wait at the courthouse because I was afraid that the person was going to come after me going home. I have created a life with so much freedom and a lot of intimacy and transparency in that sense in my relationships, a lot of empowerment. But I'm almost already living the next cross, but I have forgotten sometimes a bit about the 37 and the 40. What is the resolve of the community in the now? What is the tenderness that could actually be by my side when life is rough? And things like that. So those keys that are there now, I think it's important that we have learned them before we're like, just give me the new set of keys. No, I probably need to look at the 40 and the 37. Those are important for me to look at. And I think I maybe have focused a little bit too much on the 9 and the 16 because 16 is also my Mercury, right? So it's in Gemini and it's like fun. But this is something that I think for the next 2 years, for all of us, how are you using the old set of keys, the 37, 40, 16, and 9? And how are you doing the transition and including the new keys? Like you can't go to second grade if you haven't graduated first grade. So every time we move across, right, we have had time to learn the one that came before. Let's go to Nick.
Yeah, I was speaking in a chat about Tantra because it's really present these last weeks in slowing down, really slowing down to become more present with all that is and with myself and my own body. And I've really noticed how much Tantra is actually present in like daily life, in all small daily things, because it's having that awareness and a sensuality in how we do things. The other day, I was babysitting my friend's daughter and I brought her to bed, and she asked me to, with a small feather, just caress her face so she could fall asleep. And I was just so amazed because she just surrendered to that feeling. And I thought, like, wow, that's so beautiful. I can really learn from you, because that act was an act of Tantra. I was there fully present with her, and she was fully surrendering to that feeling of love and sensuality and caressing. And it just made me, it was an invitation for myself to really look into my daily activities, where I could bring in more presence, but also where it was already present, and how Tantra was actually part of my daily life already. And it was really beautiful. And with that, I also noticed like how much my body enjoys to slow down, to really truly slow down, and how much I actually need to slow down for my body to feel completely safe, to fully enjoy everything that is there. And in this week, for example, in a few days, it will be the birth and death anniversary of my son. And what I've been noticing these last days is that like body memory is coming up already, leading up towards that day, like trauma is coming up. Even though for me, I've worked through so much grief that for me it will be a day of celebration, but the body remembers. And so the body is showing me like, okay, there's still within like the cellular memory things that come up. And so it asks for a lot of compassion and presence and slowing down and doing somatic exercises to really allow myself to be with that. And I feel like this gate is really helping me to be with that. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you. And the fact that it is in the beginning of Gemini, giving us that indication from the beginning seems important. Then going back to the cellular memory, in order for us to be able to trust the compass of the memory of the cells, that's exactly why we need to go back. And if there is grief, if there is repression, anything that can be there in the imprint, it's our responsibility to actually allow it to integrate or dissipate, so that then we have this more clean blueprint when it's not holding on to anything. So surrender it to God. But with a body, we cannot think it. We have to feel it. There is no other way than to feel it. And the body often needs that slowing down. The female body has that genius. However, with the way that society has been for the last at least 70 years, where there has been so many women coming into the workforce and more living in a schedule that's not necessarily cyclical as it works for women, even with more miscarriages and all these things that are happening with fertility, something is off. I guess the 15, the wild woman, something is off with the cycles, with how the world is set up. So that's on one hand. And then on the other hand, that can also be with a more immature feminine, a kind of lethargy or collapse. Okay, I don't have to go to work. I can do all my work in front of my computer. I don't have to leave my house. And I don't have to clean out anything either, because I feel safe in my house with a million things here. So too much slowness or too much movement. And then what you're saying with the slowing down, that's when we can see how the wild woman really wants to move. And sometimes she's going to be very slow, and sometimes she's going to be very dynamic. And that's similar to what we can see with the Black Panther. So in the 64 Dwarfs, we're making her a her, because sometimes she's completely sun gazing. And even if a branch is almost like falling over her, breaking off, she's still just there in her laziness. But then when she's hunting or when she's playing, it's going to be completely different. So for all of us to connect with that Black Panther in every moment, what is the body asking for? And connecting it to the 20. What is the being? The body and the being. Allies again. How can the body and the being be allies? So everything that you say goes back to that compass of how can we make the body, the visceral, the presence, part of our compass? Because in that, we can actually discern what's right for us.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that through the slowing down, we can also see how the wild woman wants to move, because I do have the 15 and I also have the 46 in my cross. So yeah, making that connection, that from there I can also move into the next action. That is really, really useful. So thank you.
So you have the cross of the vessel of love. That's your
Yes.
cross. So you did lose your child, right?
I did.
Yeah. So going back to what Rory was saying about unlocking the G for all of us, part of your lesson, because the lesson with the cross of vessel of love is self-love, right? So sometimes the most precious thing has to be taken away from us so that we remember the love of the self, the love of the body, in all that. So in some way, it's a big challenge, but it's also big present. I think the most important thing as the grief comes up is that going back to what that cross is for you, because that is the only way through. So that's the catalyst for the grief to do whatever the grief needs to do for you to come home even more.
Yeah, that's completely true. That was one of the biggest gifts that my son has given me. And throughout my life, the repeating pattern, how my friend mentioned it once, is like everything that you love is being taken away. Like everything that you loved, it's being ripped away. So there's a lot of loss, grief, and detachment. And the process itself is not an easy process. And I've always gone into the depth of it, but it has opened my heart so much more as well. And yeah, I feel very grateful for all of the experiences.
Where is your 25 in your cross? Which position is the 25 in? Or like which sphere in the gene keys do you remember, if you're more gene keys? So it's somewhere in your incarnation cross. So it doesn't matter where, but I wanted to mention the 25, but like where?
The 25 is my personality sun. No, my personality earth.
Okay. So for you right now, I just wanted to show all of us what's going on in the sky.
Evolution. Yeah.
Your evolution. That's so powerful. So this is something that JLo mentioned in the chat as well, with Saturn moving into Aries after having been for a few years now in Pisces. And it's together with Neptune. And your challenge in this life, but also how you can anchor and embody even deeper is that innocence, that love of spirit. And how can you continue to be innocent when life or God takes away the most precious thing that you've been gestating inside of your own body? If there's one thing for a woman that's almost impossible, is to keep the innocence and to know that's an initiation. It's almost like asking the impossible of you. That's probably why it is your evolution sphere. How can you remain innocent when everything you ever loved was ripped away from you? But whatever has happened, whatever has been ripped away from you, having the higher octave of love, which is Neptune, coming in together with the more severe lessons that we're here to learn, which is Saturn, moving over this zero Aries point, going from Pisces, where we could drown in everything that hurt, or we could go to drugs, we could even kill ourselves. It sounds horrible, but Pisces is that vastness where there is no limit. There's so many things that can happen. But now, with all the work that you've done and seeing the higher octave of love, seeing the hard work, and that coming in to, again, Aries, which is the self that's sparking, the self that finds empowerment. So a lot of the things that have been challenging for you are getting more activation right now, but also helping you to anchor that 25. And many of us have the 25. I know many in the community that do have. So for all of us that have the 25 somewhere, for me, it's my Venus. There's a huge thing when it comes to hard work and love, and is it worth it or is it not worth it? Can I give the other cheek, or all these things, because it's relationships and my Venus, my values, right? So whatever you have, it could be your North Node, it could be so many things in your chart. But for all of us, that is a huge activation right now with Neptune and Saturn meeting at the zero Aries point. And if I'm not mistaken, it's like 6,000 years last time. So even as a mother that has lost what you have lost, maybe this goes back to a cycle 6,000 years ago, that there was something. So as you love yourself through the grief and you allow yourselves to do the work that they know how to do, remember that this could be also the completion and the integration of a 6,000 year cycle that you're actually doing for yourself and humanity. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Valencia, now you are on camera and here.
Okay, yeah, it's been an early day. I had to drop a friend to the airport at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm getting ready to drive over to the next state. But long story short, I'm just jumping on camera on my phone actually, because I'll be leaving shortly. So the primary question, and then you've said some deep things that connect to it just now. But the primary question is, I have the 46 for SQ and the 46.6 North Node. So the 25.6 is my South Node. You just addressed that. And the primary question was, so for the last 2 years, I believe, the 59.6 really has been so alive in a practical, pragmatic way that 2 years ago, I started with the intention of practicing and trying to advocate for, like even in some of my Gene Keys groups, to try to bring it up as a point, that to give people heads up that this is even what I'm doing for myself, because it seems to be triggering for people when you are with the 59, that shadow of dishonesty. So like 2 years ago, I started realizing what it meant. It was kind of like a insight that dishonesty was about self dishonesty and being honest with yourself. Like you even posted a post on the Facebook wall, it's like a few days ago. You said, which gene key is most important to you or whatever. And I responded with the 59. I said, I'm not sure, but in this moment, it seems to be the 59. And I gave my reasons, whatever. Then with relating to this 59, and this comment goes back to the beginning of this call where you said the 59 coming into this new wave of time with the incarnation cross of blanking on it right now. So this 59 is alive for me also in the relating sphere in the star pearl right now because I've been meditating on that 30 line one, which means a lot to me, or it's coming into view, I should say. It feels like it's really important. And so it's showing up there, 59.6 for the relating sphere template. Then in my Chiron return cross, it's the 59.6 is in my evolution, and the 55.6 is my life's work in my Chiron return chart. And I would say the last thing is the 59.6 is my natal Pluto. So, it's really strong. And you connected it with the 46. And so, what I will say in my experience is, and I was just thinking this recently, is that it seems like as I have really embraced the 59.6, advocate that it's really important for us to take self responsibility for our own triggers. And I feel like that's coming through the 59.6 because the reason why we can be so easily to project, or sometimes mean things happens in groups and the other person's blamed for somebody's sensitivity, is because it's like there is this blind spot to self responsibility. So as I've embraced that and things come up, and even old stuff that I don't know is inside of me, just when I'm meditating, I've been like, come on, and I'm happy to talk to this part aspect, go through what I went through on Ashley's call in her workshop. This energy came up from age 8 to 16. It just feels like naturally more and more, and this is the question point connection, because this has been really important to me, more and more that my 46.4 SQ is just naturally unfolding, like in real time, more where I feel more playful, more delight, more in like the Venusian Libra part is really showing up now. Whereas before diving into the 59 this deeply, I couldn't put I didn't really feel the 50, the 46 fully. It was almost like there was something in the way of it. So what was your point about the 59 and the 46 connection at the beginning of this call? So I said all that to say the 59.6 is really feels super important in my journey. And it seems to have been like the missing, like, golden key to really starting to feel like I am getting into the essence design chart of myself that feels like the me that I couldn't put my finger on, but feels more authentic even.
Yeah, I will show you exactly the chart in a moment. I think going back to where we are today when it comes to the Mercury archetypes and the Mercury season, you are saying that your Mercury, your sphere of relating, is the 59.6, right? That is
The template of it, what they're calling the benevolent template placeholder of the relating sphere, is the 59. And my actual sphere for relating is 30 line 1,
okay.
which, like, yeah, I won't go into that.
But your Pluto is 59, like you said. So
And I have Pluto 59.6 in my human design. I have it in my evolution, Chiron.
So that is a question. So for Pluto, for all of us, are patterns that repeat and that can hold us back from our evolution because they repeat over lifetimes and lifetimes. And sometimes when we look at our Pluto, it feels like it's been going on forever. And it's like almost like the cellular memory that is just so heavy. I have the 32, the fear of failure. And on the other side, the wanting perfection and the wanting everything to be right. And all this is Libra, wanting everything to be the mediator, wanting everything to be balanced. So when I think about that, it feels like I remember 6,000 years at least, right? So just as an example, for all of us, whatever you have in your personality, Pluto, when you relate to that shadow frequency, the repressive, the reactive, there's probably something there that your soul is so freaking tired of. And that's why we are saying in evolution astrology that we need to look at the other side to not continue to drown in the same patterns. However, there are very important questions. So for you, Valencia, the question with the 59, the main question is, how do you create true intimacy with people? And because the 59 is the placeholder for the relating sphere, Richard Rudd's way of seeing it is that the way that we are creating, relating with others is through true transparency and true intimacy. So there is something in your journey in that 6th line as well, where there hasn't been that cellular presence, maybe, of really creating intimacy. So the way that you relate with others, how are you in every moment creating more intimacy than what you have been able to do before? How you're choosing your relationships? What are you, again, the gate of caution in Gemini, thinking before we speak, being aware, being in the body before we eye gaze, before we share, before we speak? Like, how much are you in that intimacy and transparency with self, so that you can come across in a way that actually creates that true connection with the other? That is something that your soul has said, I want to learn this in this lifetime. And that 55 on the other side says there's a freedom in that, to be that girl, that essence of what you really are, the playfulness that you have forgotten sometimes. And that, of course, is going to connect then to your SQ and the 46, and integrating that South Node together with a more innocent way of living and being, and et cetera, in the 25. So all of that goes together. The 59 is super important for you because it sounds so bad, but for all of us, we didn't get it right. We're here. We came back. Evolution astrology. We didn't get Pluto right. And now we have enough time to live, enough awareness, enough embodiment to say, okay, how can I be a guardian for the higher frequency of this gate? How can I be guardian of preservation? How can you be guardian of intimacy? That's what we can become, right? And now I'm going to show you so I'm going to show you this, and this, we could do something more on it. So this is what I've been speaking about the whole entire time. There are those perfect things on the wheel in geometry, which is the Sphinx gates and the cross of the vessel of love gates. So you have the cross of the vessel of love gates as the main cross in this global cycle. So 10, 15, 25, and 46. We are unlocking that. So then we have the other equinox, which is going to be the Sphinx gates. We don't have to look at that. So we just look at the 10, the 15, the 25, and the 46. And Roy Rahu had names for these that we are explaining in the masterclass that we did with Ashley several years ago, where he's calling the 15 is the pattern, the 10 is nature, the 46 is the temple, the 25 is the way. However, what I was speaking about was the 46, that in the current cross, which is the 40 with the 37, like I said, and the 9 and the 16, in the current cycle, the 40, the gate of resolve, or the gene key of resolve, has been the way of unlocking the temple, the body, embodiment. So if we had some resolve, if we had some Virgo understanding in general, organizing things like the father archetype, if we had that, yeah, the temple is there. And not only maybe the body temple, but we can also build our house and live in our little castle, whatever we need. So this is what we needed. And now, like I said, those keys, they are changing. So hopefully we have learned to use them, but there is a new key. So the new key for unlocking the 46 is the 59. It's not enough anymore to just say, oh, I have some resolve. Okay, good. That's just the beginning. You actually need the 59 to unlock the temple. Going back to Tantra. This is Tantra. And Tantra is not what people think, because it has been used in a way, of course. Tantra is exactly what Nick was starting to say, is to be able to be so aware and so embodied, so you can feel everything from that subtle feather that allows you to just surrender to life and the beauty of being in a form, and just surrender into sleep and the dream world and everything. Like, right? Like, that's how you live with the unicorns. That's how you allow life to tickle you. So Tantra is to have that wide range, and to not anything that happens is just remembering the trauma, right? Everything that Nick is saying, all that responsibility of allowing the tears, the grief, the 6,000-year process to be done through us. That's part of that. So we can live life. This is a procreative universe. It's a sexual universe. We don't just want sexual, superficial procreation. We want Tantra. We want to have that intimacy with life, that transparency with life, that seeing the eyes of a soul when we look into somebody else's eyes. So that is everything that is going to be part of this 6-line reality that we're walking into.
Wow. And there's so much. It just feels like electricity. I have the 40 line one in the design of that Pluto 59-6. So that Pluto is a 40 line one resolved. And then there's the 59-6. And the other, just playing with my charts, I so relate to the design side as well of my chart. That 1 line 6 becomes my sun, Scorpio. And it feels like it felt like it brought peace, or like epiphany to why I feel like there's two people in me. And one was like, this design chart is so perfect of that confusion side that I so relate to, yet my personality has been what I've been conscious of and aware. And I feel like a part of this journey is to literally integrate them and to just to flow. And interestingly enough, that if I just plug in the numbers of my birth time for my design, it's the cross of penetration. So I don't know where that fits in here, but I'm looking at the cross of the sleeping phoenix, and I know I have that 55, 6, and 59 in the Chiron chart. But it's interesting that my design chart, when I just plug it in, playing with it, the cross actually was the cross of penetration. So anyway, this just seems to intuitively be sparking a lot, and I'm not being super like intellectual with it. I'm playing with it, but I absolutely notice, and I know my husband notices it, and people, their reactions to me noticing, it's like being absorbed into the body and the way I'm playing out my life, which is refreshing because I'm not just trying to analyze anything. I'm actually just, yeah. So this is helpful, very helpful. Thank you. It's just fun.
Thank you. Inside are the new set of keys. The secondary equinox, which has the Sphinx gates. The Sphinx gates are unlocked by the cross of penetration in the next cycle. Right now, they were unlocked by the cross of Maya, 61, 62, 32, 42. But in this coming cycle, it's the cross of penetration that's unlocking the Sphinx gate. And I think the other thing is that astrology can sometimes have us go astray a little bit because there is actually no way of separating the design and the personality. And I know that there are a lot of people in the community that says, oh, but I feel like a reflector because if I just look at this, but actually we are not just this. That's again why I say we're not just the mind and the heart. What about this beautiful animal 3D temple that I have? We are the animal body, the human heart, the creator spirit, the soul that lives in this geometry. If we actually make it a geometry where the soul can feel safe and home, like, it's so important to integrate. And that's exactly what you're saying. It's so important to focus on the integration of the programming partners, of the axes, of the north node and the south node, of the polarities, wherever we are. What is that integration of the wholeness of being? Because again, if we're split, as 2027 is coming, there is no compass.
Yeah.
And as we know, the mind has never been the compass. So that's exactly the right thing you're doing, to not be intellectual about it, but to feel, to be, to allow that integration to show itself through you.
Yeah. So thank you so much. You and Ashley have really been helpful to bringing this home.
Yay. Yeah, and the journey never ends. So we'll continue with a new set of keys. Let's go to Fernanda.
Yeah, thank you for what you were talking about before, Bella, about the 25. I have it in my Chiron and my North Node, and I was 56 on the 18th of April, and I think someone told me I'm in my second Saturn return, and I had many miscarriages also, which were very traumatic when I was younger, and I had the gifts also of. But lately, I've lost many of my best friends who died actually, and a whole series, and it's like very intense for me. And I don't know if it's linked to the 25 again, the Saturn return, second Saturn return. Anyways, and this new thing you were explaining, but yeah, and it's like all the people I really love have been not there anymore. It's just like my best friends, and so I don't know if it's related to this Saturn again. Anyway, and I'm in Aries also. So you say it's now in Aries.
Yeah.
Aries.
Anything you have in Aries is going to be very activated with Saturn going over it and then Neptune going over it. So that is all the way 2027. From now 2027, it's going back and forth over this Aries 0 point, and there is going to be so much potential for healing. I think the most important thing for us to remember when we have the 25 strongly is that every loss, every heartache, every shock and smash that it feels like life gives us, it is an initiation. That is the only medicine. I think that the worst thing is to fall into that unfairness, because if we fall into unfairness, we are always right. It was unfair. I have the 25 in my Venus in the 6th line. There's so many things that are unfair in so many ways, on so many levels, right? And it doesn't make sense. So if we fall in the unfairness, I do want to show the same chart again one time, just so that we all can see the unlocking of the 25 in the next cycle, because that can help us all, even if it's not necessarily connected to Gemini. So let's see, share. So here we're looking at the same thing again. So the way that we are finding an ally or a key for the 25 to be able to say, this was the hardest thing I ever went through. And it often is a separation, because especially you're a 3-5, right? There's a lot of interactions in your life. There's a lot of powerful interactions, good and bad. Like sometimes it blows up really ugly and sometimes it's really amazing. But yeah, so before, the tenderness that you can have with yourself, because the world might not seem to give it to you. The world gives you shocks. You could give yourself tenderness. You could seek out people where there was tenderness. Like the same time with the miscarriages as well. Like, yeah, of course, tenderness is going to help. But the next phase, it's not tenderness. It is to find your freedom, despite of whatever life is throwing at you. It's hard. It's hard to live past 2027. And that's why people are going to check out in different ways. You don't have to kill yourself to check out, but there is a segue where you can opt out. But the way to go, it's this vast Pisces energy of creating our own freedom and liberation. My mom, she has been very ill since I was very little, and I thought I was going to lose her so many times. And she has lived longer than my dad, longer than my grandmother, my grandfather, her own sister. Like, she has outlived so many people. And she can even say, because now she's alone, far away in the south of Sweden, that's why I'm in Sweden right now. She can say that she thinks that these people, she has the 7, which is going towards the future. She has the 7 in her life's work and in her Pluto. And she has the 61 in her Pearl. She cannot walk. She cannot do almost anything by herself, but she understands somehow why her mom is not here and my dad is not here, because there's just something with the way that she was already tuned into the future so long ago. And even the fact that she can't walk, I think she sees that as some kind of spiritual challenge that she's into. I don't believe I would want to live the way that she lives. But again, she has the 55 in her moon. So she hasn't completely fallen into victimization, because she would have opted out long ago. 61 in her Pearl. She hasn't fallen in completely into psychosis, because it would be in a mental ward. Just to say, it's not fair. It's not fair to lay in a bed and not even can use the bathroom by herself. And at the same time, she didn't fall into victimization. And she's still doing things for people that are changing lives and sparking lives. So somehow, it's not fair, but we can still do it if we want to.
Yes, thanks for that, Vera. And what's interesting is also I have the 55.4 in my attraction field.
Yeah, that's exactly her moon. That's exactly her moon. Yeah. Yeah. The Pisces moon, where there's the design moon or the personality moon. That moon, oof, it's not an easy moon.
And I got the 22 line 1 in my SQ. So I got the 2.
Yeah. So it's like holding, same thing as Nick, holding the love for what was dear and allowing the grief of what was lost to go like sand between the fingers. Like, how can we still hold the love and allowing the pain to not be held in a way that it hurts us? But there can be a kind of lightness too, because the people that are opting in are, like you're saying, they're not superficial people. If you're a superficial person, probably the world is going to swipe you away, right? Somehow, right? We need the depth to be able to live in this world. So that's also why I understand that was the choice of the soul. And if you're still here, it's because you have the tools, or you can find the tools to find a way forward.
Thank you so much, Len. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go back to Nick.
Yes, I would like to come back to the tantric channels, because I think it was like 2 months ago, I was doing one of the courses. I'm not sure if it was the 15 or the 46, But in one of those, you mentioned something about the tantric channels and that there was a masterclass around it. And I was really interested in that, but I wasn't able to find it on the website. So my question is very practical, like, did it change names, or is it something that I need to find in a different place? And I'm even more interested now you mentioned that it's actually really going to be of importance, and I understand now why it has been so prominent for me, prominently present for me in these last months, as it's going to be helping me to unlock more of my 46.
I'm looking right now. I thought it was called the Sacred Gates. It's a $25 masterclass. So this goes back to what I was saying with, like, it's not just the heart and the mind, and we think the heart is feminine and the mind is masculine and they need to make peace. No, the sacral is showing us exactly that trivian being that has the sacral connection to the lower part of the body graph, that has the G with the true self, and then the throat center to be able to speak that true self. And in a tantric sense, when we're saying that we need the life force, we need the purity of the heart, the connection with the beloved, and we also need the connection to spirit. And that's what the gates that are between the G center and the sacral are allowing that Kundalini to start moving in a way that we are not numb, we are alive. So it's very important to understand those gates. So we are speaking about those in that masterclass. So I'll find it and I'll post it in the, when I upload the video.
Your sexuality and the sacral archetypes. It's under the courses. So it has a different name now than I had in my course, but it's a $25 course and it's called Your Sexuality and the Sacral Archetypes.
Okay. I think that we are in a crossroads right now where everything that human design laid out was really important. I think it's the same thing as with the key sets. We need the cross of planning. We need to master that. We have a little bit of time still. So it's not about throwing away human design or throwing away gene keys or throwing away astrology. Like, all that is our foundation. But there is a crossroads where it's about learning to embody it. And there are also new transmissions, new people. Like, some of you are studying other systems, like with Eleanor Haspel, for example. I'm doing a course with Rob that has turned out to actually be the explanation of all the tantric connections from the spine to the amino acids. It's a quickening in the energy that's coming through. And that's where it's so important also that we follow our compass. And maybe our friends die, and then what are we doing? For all of us, there's a quickening in where it is that we are going to find the next part of the transmission for us. So yes, ground the foundation and trust yourself as well, where the path is for deeper embodiment, for an awareness that is more wholesome for you. So definitely the tantric way of looking at the body graph and life is super important. But also, like everything you said, Nick, just with your friend's child, life is showing in every moment. Your body, your being is like, slow down. Oh, now I can feel how I want to move. It's already here. But that's why we don't want to be, again, like, oh, I feel like a reflector and now I'm going to study that. Let's not get stuck on the details of the mind. Let's come down to feel what's right and who we resonate with. Because I think that this is a time as well with the 25 and the 59 we're speaking about. Where does it feel clean? Where does it feel innocent? Where does it feel like true intimacy? Like, all these things, we are responsible to choose the best environment and the best people to walk forward with. So that feels important too. So basically learn everything about Tantra, but be in a relationship with somebody who basically treats you horribly. Well, did it work for you? Like, was it interesting to read a Tantra course? That's what we have to start to look at. And it's hard. I'm a 4/6. I have so much Libra. It's so hard for me to see anybody leave my life. And sometimes I just have to realize that's the thing. And that's what my life, I thought it was going to be forever with the person I was with a few years ago. It wasn't. So that's important. Learn about it, but more than anything, learn to live it, embody it, and find your unique way of doing it. You inspire that, Nick. Whatever it is that you're doing, like Momo would say, I don't know why I said this.
Well, this apparently had to come through tonight, so.
Let's go to Jan.
So I am utterly inspired by that image that you just showed. And I'm totally perplexed by it when I look at it. Can you elaborate a little bit more about the words on the outside and what they mean? Because when I look at it, if there's a starting point to all of this, you just talked about the 25 before when you talked about the way, and then going in, and I'm looking at those numbers, and I'm like, this is so interesting. On the outskirt, I only have one, the 25, which is my IQ and my relating. When I go into the next part, so in the square, basically, I have the 61, the 32, the 62, and the 16. And I'm like, when I look at those words, I'm like, interesting, because my purpose is in there, my radiance is in there, my attraction field is there. When I go even deeper, so inside of the star form, I have the 51, the 55, the 57, and the 59. And I'm like, what the heck is all of this about? And then I look at the words, and I think that's where I'm coming to. So I look at the words, and I look at the witness as an example, the 61, which is my radiance. I look at the leader, the 62, which is my purpose. I look at the 51, my life's work, which is the plan. I look at the 55, the way, which is my vocation, the whole freedom thing. I look at the 57, the example, which is my evolution. I look at the 59, the temple, which is my culture. And I'm like, holy crap, what is all of this?
When it comes to the words, I don't know if Ra or who is explaining each and every word. I think because I have 6 out of 8 G center gates, so to me, I'm more like, of course, a simple way of explaining it. This has been for always and always what holds us together. And again, the G center is about love, direction, and identity. Like, where am I going? What is love? And who am I? So that's always for humanity. It doesn't matter if it was 6,000 years ago or if it's today. Those are always things that we are constantly unlocking in this reality, right? In the holding together of this reality. And we need all this. We need a plan. We need a way. Like, we need all these things. We need a pattern to follow. We need leadership. We need the temple, whether that's the body or the temples we create. We need the creativity. Creativity is the example. The body is the temple. The collective way forward, that is the true leadership. The pattern that works for us, that is not exaggerated, that's what we need. The plan, that is the feminine intuition in the moment. Yeah, that's the plan. There's no other plan than here and now, intuitively going with the earth, right? And the way is innocence. There can't be any way. The way is innocence, right? And then the 13, the fellowship of man. Of course, we are here to witness, to observe, and to together walk forward. And looking back so we can walk forward in a better way. 7 and 13 that we see here. So these are simple ways of speaking about it. And what we are seeing is that, going back to the set of keys that were unlocking this for the last 400 years up until 2027 was these set of keys, which is the cross of planning and the cross of Maya. And now there is a whole new set of keys, the cross of the sleeping phoenix and the cross of penetration. And again, I think that in the masterclass that we did, that I think is $25, I think that's not so important. The most important thing is to come back and ask those questions that you're asking on. Like, what is it? What does it mean that the way is the 25? And what does it mean that the key is the 54? Once I've understood what it means, how the freak do I do it? How, when, like, with whom? And these are the things. Like, a masterclass is for us to master things. And the masterclass I did with Ashley was just a presentation. But this is for the rest of our lives. And this is for the coming generations. That's why this is so important. And it's such an incredible shift from the crosses where we're in to the crosses we're going. Like, these are full-on crosses. The cross of penetration with the 51, leading the way of shock. It's a different world we're walking into. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, yes. When you're like, it makes logical, right? I'm like, I've got some work to do here, and that's what I love. That's why I love how you bring all of these things up. It's funny because you were talking about the embodiment before, right? And for me, that also results in somatic imprint, which is one of the key words here behind me when I think about what is inside all of us, right? When I think about how we act on a daily basis, it's about our thoughts, our emotions, our physical sensations. You've heard me talk about that human journey before, based on the hero's journey by Campbell. That is I feel like that's my life's work, in the sense of explaining to people or sharing with people. Explaining is a big word, but sharing with people, hey, we're all human beings. It doesn't matter where you were born, when you were born, but we got a couple of things in common. We all go through that thing, right? And at a certain point, and I love what you just said about the witness, because I was like, what is the witness all about? And then you said, looking back. I'm like, oh my God, of course, because those are all the traumatic experiences we've had. That's what the fear that I like to look into, the former experiences affecting reality. which still drive us to the way is, as you just said, the way is innocent, or innocence. How do I get innocent again? By getting rid of all of that crap that I'm carrying with me, excuse the word, the deconditioning to get rid of that. And that's exactly what I'm working on right now. Like, I love that framework, but what I really love is the one thing somewhere in that whole system down here, when you start thinking about going inside, what I shared with the group a couple of months ago, this thing about Pennebaker and expressive writing, which is really about, hey, I had a big experience. We all have them. Or I've had a minor experience, but still I feel like it's influencing me. What happened, right? Describe it. What thoughts did I have around it? What feelings did I have? What are the implications? What does it do for my life right now? Can I clean this up? And this is one thing I've been, well, struggling with isn't the right word, but something that has been on my mind is, we talk about conditioning. We talk about, as an example, with the gene keys, moving from the shadow to the gift to the city. Beautiful words. How the hell do you do it? Right? Can we make it practical? Here comes the 5-1, right? In my profile, the one who has been studying all of this stuff, the 5 who's like, okay, how do you universalize this? Well, it isn't about men, women. It isn't about guys wearing glasses, darkish or grayish hair. It's about being human, right? We're all together in that. And then it's about healing, but not healing as a, I want to heal, but healing as a, I'm playing it forwards, right? I'm playing towards something. And while I play, I clean up all the mess that I've gathered somehow. The attraction field. I think that's interesting that the 16 kicked in all of a sudden. And by doing that, I actually heal, become whole, and I serve the whole. So the whole thing just made sense. And I'm glad this is recorded, because I'm just rambling right now, so I can go back and listen to what the hell was I saying here. But this is it.
Shouldn't you listen to yourself when you say something that's really like genius? Why would you listen to yourself if you don't even know what you're saying?
It's partially written, and I am listening to myself, but it's like, quite often you start talking about these things and you're like, am I saying this, or is this somehow just, again, one of those moments that I think it was in the Line Companion a couple of weeks ago, spontaneous conceptualization. Well, here we go. Right? But this image just clicked, in the sense of, all right, when I saw it, and that's why I asked you about the words, and I'll figure out if there's anything where Ra described those words as in exactly.
Yeah, there is stuff on the global cycles, but a lot of the things are getting a deeper meaning now. Like even just the camel and the dog. Who knew why that is in that chart, the main chart where he does the mandala and the stars, the camel and the dog. Well, they're a star constellation on the sky. Now, even science is starting to show those things. So there is a deeper meaning, and that's Richard Rudd. That's each one of us. The transmission is showing us new things. We're speaking about the global cycles today, and they were there from the very beginning. So we don't have a lot on the 20, but we have a lot on the global cycles. So yeah, trusting that what comes through, and it's because it is a living transmission.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So Susanna, you had your hand up, even if it was hard to raise it, and now it's not up anymore. But now, yeah, now it is. Please.
Oh, it's very intense. Even if it's only online, I can feel all the energies, especially in the body, because I'm a projector, mental projector. So from throat downwards, I have nothing activated, so I can feel energy from a distance. I'm like a hermit most of the time, 4-6. And very interesting about this Jinky 20, which is in the throat, right? And it has to do with Jinky 34, this majesty. So in order to be present, you are programmed or need to activate the majesty of being in the sacral. So it's like being very active physically and at the same time very sure, so we don't need to speak all the time. That's, I find, very amazing, how to be calm and know when to speak, when not to speak. I have Jinky 10, so I feel triggered. I always meet people with Jinky 20. My partner for 13 years, he had this very prominent position, and he was always silent. You could feel like always calm, always silent. And then another thing I wanted to share was, like, I heard Ra talk about 2027 as this activation of the consciousness through the solar plexus, the emotional center. So it's like we're not all of us, but most of us, we're gonna be able to feel, receive awareness, and see things through our solar plexus, through feeling. And many children that are born, they will have this consciousness center activated. It's like they will feel, they will look at someone and they will know if they are honest, if they're not, through these emotions. And we have in this center, chakra, we have the archetype of the revolutionary, the peacemaker, the fire starter, the mother, and Jinky 22. So these are going to be important archetypes for us, like humanity in 2027. And I love the idea. I've been waiting for this maybe 14 years, the first time I heard it. And I was like, yes, we're going to be knowing things about people through our emotions, like this feeling. So we're going to be able to pick much better politicians, I think. Yeah, I hope so. I'm complete. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Where are you from?
Here, Spain, northern Spain.
Okay. Haven't seen you before, but thank you.
It's
Come
the
back.
first day.
Yeah, come
Yeah.
back.
And I heard about you girls and guys from the Delta, doing this week in the Delta, from a beautiful lady, Ozge from Turkey. Yeah, and she speaks a lot about you guys, so I had to meet you.
Yay.
Thanks.
Thanks. Let's go to Kelly.
Hi. I also really appreciate the description about the cross and the keys and how they're all moving simultaneously. And I liked how you were explaining, for example, if you want to find an ally at 25, then we've been looking towards like tenderness, 37. And then now we will be eventually in 2027 looking toward freedom. So the 25 to the 37 to the 55. Does it work backwards also? I guess I'm just thinking about my gate 20. Does it work the opposite direction? Or maybe no.
I think you can play with this a lot, and that it
Okay.
creates those formulas that are so cool. Like, to just go back to this, I think if you haven't found tenderness and equality in self and with others, it's going to be very hard to find freedom. So if you haven't had some level of experience and embodiment of the gate that is now, how are you going to arrive to the next one? So I do think they build on each other. So that's one thing. And of course, you could also, like, they're allies. The way that the Robert who says is that, yeah, the G center is always what holds this rally together, and it's always what we are unlocking as humanity. But of course, it's this clockwork, like you're saying, they're moving and then they're even coming back. There's going to be another spiral where this tenderness again unlocking, right? So it's just, yeah, higher frequencies. I think the other thing is, I was playing the other day because I'm doing the star codons with Rob. So all of the gates are lovers, and they're names that to me feel very in time now, because even 2009 is 15 years ago. So the gene keywords are pretty new, but they are still 15 years back. So when we speak about the star codon of sovereignty or aphrodisia or intuition, and there are some words that I love so much, and there are only two gates. So I was playing exactly with this the other day, that I said, for example, intuition is unlocked by and whatever. And then it created these formulas. And it's like, I was almost shocked about what it is that unlock the different things by using the new words. So this is what I mean. We can take the gene keys, we can take the human design, we can take somebody who's setting new keynotes. Susanna was using the archetypes right now, speaking about archetypes of the center of the emotional center. So even just to say, what would that be? Okay, if we want to unlock the innocent, well, the best ally to do so as the time that's coming, it's the game changer, right? So like we could even do the exact same thing with just that. So I feel it's coming through us in different languages. And I think, however, since it came through today, I didn't know that it would. Like, I think it's time for us that we prepare our 2 sets of keys and that we are getting prepared, because this 0 Aries point in 25 with Neptune and Saturn going over. That is a big thing. And this is what's making the world never go back to what it was before. Just Neptune is 165 years around the wheel. But like we say, them meeting at the 0 point, it's been 6,000 years.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's go back one more share, and that's you, Susanna.
Yeah, I had an idea about the Sphinx, the cross of the Sphinx, right? What it means. Because the Sphinx, it used to be this, if you reach that stage of consciousness, you could be like sitting calm, observing, witnessing the world. And at the same time, you were able to send your astral being somewhere else in a way. It's like the capacity to travel between worlds. The Sphinx is not just being calm, but it is actually connecting the atmic body, the Buddhic body, and the monadic bodies, all these higher planes. And penetration and this solar plexus together activating in 2027, for me, it has to do with this penetrating through people, feeling through people. So being very sensitive to other energies. So we're going to be able to have this kind of protection shield. We will know how to protect ourselves, depends on where we're moving. So if we go into denser energies, we can penetrate dense negative energies, but we will not be touched because we will know how to be the Sphinx in a way, which is calm outside. We behave properly outside, but inside we're higher. We can even thinking about something beautiful, like being in paradise up here, envisioning beautiful things. And in the world in 3D, we could still be helping people, but we're not going to be, I think, that penetrated. We're going to penetrate safely in a way. So that's why I wanted to share.
I love that. For me, there is also connection to where we have been and where we're going. So we could also see in the global cycles, we are going into the Aquarius. That's where we're going. But on the other side of Aquarius in the wheel is Leo. So we could also say the Sphinx is a kind of Leo. It's a kind of leadership that was there, but there is a new Aquarian leadership that we're going. We're on the other side of the wheel now. So it's like it really embodying that higher leadership that is for the future that we're, and also the Sphinx is looking at the North Star, is looking at the direction. That's part of like that cross. It's all about where are we going. We know we can look back and we can see that majesty we could speak about with the Leo, with the leadership that's been, but we are asked for a new kind of leadership. And that is a leadership going into six line rally, like you say, they're all the layers of being, even all the layers that we can't see, but we're starting to have our awareness intact with the feeling, with the instinct or intuition, with the logic, like all this together, working together with the cellular intuition. And then we have the compass, we become the compass. And that is the Sphinx, is having all these parts of us and to be able to, like you say, move. And that's also with a new species. It's to have an awareness and an intimacy that's not only through the physical touch, but it's an intimacy in awareness. So these are all the kind of skills that are coming up as we are upgrading and even evolving into possibly what's going to be a different species than what we are, which we could also say the lion becomes the Sphinx somehow. There is an evolution that's coming. I love your weaving and bringing in this with, you know, what is possible, where are we going, and what does some of these things mean, like questioning, so that we can see, why does it say the camel and the dog on the chart? Well, there's something there, right? It's that is part of the story as well, with Ursa Major on the sky and like the pole star and these things. Like it's all part of, it's almost like everything is already written in the stars. And each person, whether that's Rowerhu, Richard Rudd, or the people that came with evolutionary astrology, they had one way of explaining it. But it's like we are deciphering the star lore so that we can embody that geometry, the right geometry somehow here, that includes all of the bodies, all the awareness centers, all the love and all the spirit and all the embodiment. Yeah, so thank you so much. Even if it wasn't so much on the 20, it's all about being here and now together and finding a way of feeling empowered. And I do feel empowered. I do feel a lot of energy. So whatever you do right now, something is probably automatic for you. And it could be to go and grab something in the fridge, or it could be to look at the messages on your phone. If you could just take the Tranquil's advice for 2 minutes to just stop and feel, going back to what Nick said, how does my body want to move now? And it doesn't even have to be the body. What's happening in the being now? Instead of doing something right away, just stay 2 minutes and see what happens when you stay with what is instead of automatically doing something. I feel that's what the Tranquil is asking for. And if you feel like you need to do something or shake something or take a shower, then do it, because there is a lot of energy. Like we're pulling here in strains where it's even about deciding to upgrade or deciding to stop. It's like, are we starting to die or are we starting to live? So then leave a little in time and space so that the whole of you can make the choices to become more alive or not. Thank you everyone for today.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, Bella.
everyone.
Thank
Next
you very
time.
much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.